Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I am Franco Panizo, your usual co-host. Joining me, as you guys can see, and as you will soon hear, is Jose Armando, aka Island Jose, aka Cinco. If you're listening to this, you would not have been able to tell this little detail, but if you're watching, you will. Jose just snuck in there. Seat was empty as we transitioned live to the show. So very Inter Miami-esque after halftime there. Coming in a couple seconds late. But all the same, happy to have you on board, my friend. Jose, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. A lot of running around in the last couple of days with the Dolphins, which we were at the same venue on Monday night. That was fun. I didn't get to see you, but you were with Petrico. The Miami Heat Media Day, the end of the season for the Marlins, and the Mets not being able to make it to the playoffs. So a lot of stuff going on, but I think we're all pretty much set on into Miami and what's going to happen with this team at the end of the regular season and how things are going to shape up coming into the playoffs. So should be a pretty good show. I hope we get a lot of questions in so that we can, I'd like to have the conversation with the fans, Inter Miami fans. They're very passionate. I've seen my Twitter feed. I haven't been able to respond a lot because of everything that's going on, but I think we're going to go on the same trend. A lot of Mascherano talk, there's so many things going on. It's going to be a good show.
There is a lot to talk about. We're going to try to do it in our hour and 10-minute self-imposed time limit that we have here on Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I am a little under the weather, if you guys can't tell, either from my appearance or from how I sound. The baby got me a little sick, I think. She had a little flu. She's a month old now, officially, as of Monday. And she had a little flu, sniffles and heavier breathing than normal. And then the missus got sick, and now I'm a little sick. I'm not crazy sick, but just a little bit.
You'll get through it. You'll get through it.
I'll power through. Jose, talking about the Inter Miami fans, first I'm going to go through the comments here before I go into a neat little feature that is now available to us. Nader says, hello, I'm Franco. Hello, Franco and Jose. Nice to see you guys.
Hello.
Dan Plays FIFA says, how are you guys? Francisco Garcia, buenas noches. Brad says this team is a disaster. So there we go. A little bit of everything from the people. Now, Jose, I was going to show you this cool little feature.
All right.
That I don't know what I'm doing. Now I can't figure out where it is.
Oh my God, Panizo.
Which is not great. But the people know what I'm talking about because on the last show with my dear friend Alonso Contreras, we were able to see
AKA Alonso Wenga.
Alonso Wenga, which because that's a funny inside joke, which we'll share later. There was a new feature that they introduced. I don't know where it went, where you could see the comments, every single comment as they come in here live on the screen. Yes. So that for you, who's always saying that I select the comments that don't agree with you and only agree with me.
Yes, you do.
You can see them all live and in person. But right now I can't
figure that out.
Oh, here we go.
Figure that out.
I think I found it. Yes, I clicked the button. Let's see when the comments start to roll in. There we go. See?
There you go. I like it.
They're coming in.
Perfect.
But it's just going to block some of your screen time.
No problem.
All right. We'll leave it up for a little bit. I don't know if I'll leave it up the entire show because it does distract me. Jose, we've got to take stock of where Inter Miami is heading into what are the final 3 games of the 3 or 2? No, we have 2 now. 2.
3 games. 3 games. New England. Then the makeup game. I think is it
Atlanta. And then Nashville.
And then Nashville on the road.
Yeah, see, I'm still a little out of it. This cold's got me down. But yes, Inter Miami, 3 more games. before the end of the regular season aren't in the best way right now. You're coming off of a Tuesday night 5-3 home loss to the Chicago Fire. A big blow to Inter Miami Supporter Shield hopes. That was prefaced by a 1-1 draw on the road north of the border in Canada, away to Toronto FC. Just before that, a few days earlier, a 4-0 victory. Una goleada in La Gran Manzana in the Big Apple against New York City FC. So since the last show that I recorded with Alonso, it's been a win by lopsided margin, a draw against an eliminated team, and now a big loss versus an Eastern Conference team that clinched a playoff spot. Jose, it's about as inconsistent as you could be.
Yeah.
And at the worst time for Inter Miami, because they've talked about wanting to finish as high as possible in the standings. I will show the table here in just one moment. But what are your thoughts on this recent 3-game stretch since we last recorded an episode here on Miami Total Football Radio, the show? What do you make of Inter Miami's current moment?
I think it's very unfortunate because I think they were set up in a position where they can, they can win a lot of the games that they had left in the schedule. For me, that New York City game, I thought that was the toughest game in the schedule for them moving forward because, yeah, Nashville is a good team as well, but it's the last game of the season, and I figured by that point, with them having so many games at home, they would be able to figure things out, and maybe they would just need a draw to win the Supporter Shield. But again, the inconsistent play of this team, the lack of availability for some of the players, some of the top players are not performing at their highest level, and all those things, have combined in this stretch. And I feel like there's still time for me. There's still time for them to figure things out. But if they believe that they can go on this run for the rest of the regular season and then just click in the playoffs magically, I don't think that's the way it works. You need to have some sort of momentum coming into the playoffs, and they need to figure that out in the next 3 games. Although, and I don't know if this was something that we were going to talk about, but that Atlanta game is during a FIFA window, and that game is going to provide a challenge by itself.
Absolutely. How many available bodies will be there for that game is the question. But before we continue to look ahead, more specifically at the schedule that remains for Inter Miami, you touched on the standings. Let's look at where Inter Miami currently stands today. Here are the Eastern Conference standings. Inter Miami is in Inter Miami. Jose trying to be funny over there. Inter Miami is in 4th place in the East. 56 points from 31 games, 16 wins, 8 draws, 7 losses. They have 68 goals scored, 52 goals against, a number that you very cleverly, and not cleverly, very attentively tweeted out. That is more than Inter Miami gave up last year. Last year they gave up, what was it, 49?
49, yes.
49. So under Tata Martino, in the year that they won the Supporter Shield, they gave up 49 goals. With 3 games remaining, they have already surpassed that number. Mathematically, Jose, they're still alive. There's still a chance that they could win the Supporter Shield, but it's a very long shot, right? They'd have to win out, and Philadelphia can't win any of its remaining 2 games.
Right. They would need a draw and a loss from Philly.
And a loss, because if Philadelphia ties twice, they would hit 65 points, and Inter Miami's maximum amount of points they can hit is
it's 65,
65.
But then goal differential would come into play, and because they do have 19 wins, and Inter Miami could make it up to 19. So there's still a shot there, depending on how things go with goals. As it stands right now, they would have to make up a 9 goal differential within 3 games.
7.
For correct 7, but that might not be as hard to do because if we're counting on, oh no, actually, yeah, that we have to do 7 because we're thinking Philly will tie both games, so their goal differential will remain the same.
Right. So it's pretty much a long shot at this point,
It is a
especially
very long.
given the level at which Inter Miami is playing right now. I mean, the most alarming game of the 3 was last night at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You and I were in attendance to see the 5-3 loss to the Chicago Fire. I mean, Jose, you said it to me yesterday in the press box. You sit next to me in person as you sit next to me here on this show virtually. And I agreed with you. I did not think that Inter Miami would lose at home to the Chicago Fire. I just that wasn't my prediction going into the game. We could sit here and lie and say, "Oh, we both thought that Chicago was going to present a big problem," and then we could look like geniuses, but that's not the reality. The reality was neither you or I thought Inter Miami would struggle with the Chicago Fire, but they struggled, and they struggled big time, Jose, and it was very alarming that they give up 5 goals at home to a team that is not a great team in the Eastern Conference. They just clinched their playoff spot or their play-in spot, however you want to look at it. I know that you and I have had that debate for many years now, whether a play-in team is considered a playoff team. But all the same, Jose, they lose to this team. They lose by giving up 5 goals. And they never really looked great in the game, save for the second half when they were down 3-1 and they really had to push and throw numbers forward and attack. They were able to tie it. They were able to make it 3-3 off of a Luis Suarez brace, a Luis Suarez doblete. But that was as close as they got. Defense, very, very vulnerable, exposed in transition. Yet again, Jose, how concerning was last night's loss? If you're an Inter Miami fan, if you're an Inter Miami player, if you're an Inter Miami coach.
Look, I'm not very concerned about it, to be honest. I'm not very concerned about it because, if anything, I see this game as an opportunity for Mascherano to, really talk to this group and let them know, yes, you guys were great, and you play at the highest level. But, if we play like we did against the Chicago Fire, we're just not going to get things done. And no, sometimes it's hard for a head coach to relate that message to players that are used to playing for Champions League, for World Cups. But the reality is that they are at a different level right now. And, there's no way the performance that we saw last night from Rodrigo de Paul can be acceptable. He is on loan this year, but he's reported to make over 15 million next year. That is not the level that you want to see from a $15 million player.
15, 1-5.
1-5, yeah. So, regardless of how much money he makes, he's coming in as a DP. He's not acting as a DP right now.
This year, he's not a DP.
Right.
Entre comillas, right?
So, my thinking is, if you're Rodrigo de Paul, you need to show your value from the first day, like Messi did. Messi won Leagues Cup for this team in the first month that he was available. We're seeing something completely different. And I know there's a huge gap between Messi and Rodrigo de Paul, but I'm not asking for Rodrigo de Paul to score goals and to do whatever, all the things that Messi did for this team during Leagues Cup in 2023. I'm just asking to step up his level in a way that he can actually be the asset that we thought he would be for this team. As of right now, that is not happening. So, this Chicago Fire game at home, conceding 5 goals, I think we see it right now as a big deal, but I think it's an opportunity. And, if I'm being positive here.
But wait, why do you not see it as a big deal? Because I'm completely on the opposite side, Jose. I mean, giving up 5 goals to the Chicago Fire is, at this stage in the game, concerning. You had Messi on the field, you had Suarez, you had Pusi, you had Jordi Alba, you had Ustari, you had Rodrigo de Paul, there was rotation, and we're going to talk about that. but they had a very strong team out there on paper, and they ended up giving up 5 goals, looking very vulnerable defensively. Why
I
is that
don't see
not
it.
concerning for you?
I don't see it as a big deal because first off, winning the supporter shield means absolutely nothing. This team learned that last year.
Fair.
They could very easily finish second in the Eastern Conference and most likely second overall as well. Things in the West. It might be useful to take a look at the standings in the West, but they can manage things as well on the West Coast, and they can still be in very good shape if they're able to face West Coast opposition in the MLS Cup final, which is a long way. Um, I think they can still get second place, and that wouldn't be that bad. That's the one thing that makes me think this is not that big a deal. And the second thing is, I think what happened last night, it was not about the Chicago Fire. I think the Chicago Fire they were trying to give the game away. I think Greg Berhalter, took out 2 of his fastest players on the field towards the end of the game when he knew that Mascherano needed to go for the game, which would leave a lot of room in the back, and he decided to take out the players that had a lot of pace and that could actually hurt Inter Miami. Then there were so many giveaways from the Chicago Fire trying to move the ball out of the back, and Inter Miami just couldn't capitalize on those mistakes. Messi, having the 1v1 opportunity, you just need to have. You can't miss. So what I'm saying is, this was not on Chicago Fire just being so much better than Inter Miami. It was just Inter Miami not having the right mindset. Maybe they were tired. I think this is not going to happen again. That's my thought process. I don't
Un
think Messi
accidente de
will allow
fútbol.
this.
Un
Yeah,
accidente del
yeah.
fútbol, according to Jose. So a soccer accident. Jose, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to take in and absorb your opinion there, but I will completely disagree with it, because I would say after last night, things are very concerning. Not only because they had their strongest, or a lot of their strongest players, or their big name players all on the field and at home, and they gave up 5 goals on a team that you and I both know Mascherano loves to be defensive minded in terms of getting that 0 at the back, and they gave up 5 in a very predictable manner. It wasn't like the Chicago Fire hit them with any real surprises, maybe barring the last golazo from distance. Besides that, I mean, it was the same formula, the same thing we've seen: teams absorbing and countering, finding a lot of space in transition, exploiting those weaknesses, and putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, but they have been successful as well. That's something that has happened throughout the entire season, and yet they can finish in second place. They even still have a shot at the supporter shield. So that's why I
Sure.
don't
So
think
they
it's that
have the
big a
shot.
deal. It's something that we have seen before. Maybe not 5 goals and not at home, but we
So
have seen those chances.
so adding to my analysis of Tuesday's game was this past weekend's Saturday afternoon's 1-1 draw against Toronto. The body language that I see from players, and this is just my analysis, this is my opinion, it's not inside information, just my sensation, reading what we see out there. Mi lectura. I see terrible body language from the team. Terrible. The goal that they give up against Toronto FC, you see the defenders all just raising their, like, no one trying to rally the guys together and being like, okay, let's get back into this. Okay, it's 1-1, let's go. No, you see a lot of arms flailing, a lot of yelling, a lot of finger pointing. And that's not normally what you want to see at this point in the year. By now, you want guys, in my opinion, who are on the same page, who will rally together, who will come together and overcome adversity, overcome the challenges that a game can give you, a playoff series can give you. And I don't see that. I see a collection of 5 big name players that are
Right.
very talented, and I see a lot of role players that
Yes.
just aren't a collective and cohesive unit. I see not a team. I just see a collection of talent. And I tweeted something to this extent yesterday. If Messi is not in his magical mode, if Magic Messi mode is not on, we've seen this from this team, in different iterations, but especially with this one, if that does not happen, if he is not brillante, which he wasn't last night,
Right.
this team struggles big time.
Oh no, 100%. 100%. Look, what I'm saying is thinking that Messi is going to play at a high level and that he's going to be available. If Messi's not available for this team, this is a completely different story.
Well,
It's a completely different story.
one of the talking points that I want to get to here before the show ends is Messi's form, because in my opinion, Jose, I don't know if you agree, I think he's the MVP this year.
Yes.
For me. Last year, you and I did not think he was the MVP. I thought it was Cucho.
Yes.
You thought it was Dennis Boanga, which not even Dennis Boanga's mom thought Boanga was the MVP last year. But
Please, come on.
all this,
I have the proof.
we got crucified last year for saying that we didn't think Messi was the MVP. And a big reason for that was because we didn't think he had played enough games despite his major contributions when he had played. This year, I think it's clear cut. I think he will be the MVP. We can talk about that again a little bit later on in more detail. But he is, to me, starting to not be so finito. He is starting to have a little bit less of that sharpness that we're used to seeing from him in the final third. Yesterday, like you touched on, he has a clear one-on-one chance that he clips off of the right post with a low effort. Okay, that can happen. But if you combine that with the penalty kick a couple weeks ago against Charlotte that was poorly taken, you combine that with the finish he had against Seattle where he's in close, could maybe get Inter Miami back into it, and he hits it over the crossbar and he misses. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to have a steep drop off or he's having a steep dip. Form happens. You can go up and down. But for Messi, we're so used to seeing him play at such a high level that I think we're starting to see a little bit of a dip in his performance levels. And that's bad news for Inter Miami before the playoffs. Usually you want a team going into the playoffs that are hot. Now, as Nick Smith says here, where did it go? We had momentum going into the playoffs last year and shit the bed. This year they're changing it up and going and stumbling. So maybe they'll get hot in the playoffs. Look, that's always a possibility. But right now, no pinta bien. The things are not looking too good. And Jose, I want you before we dive in a little more. I want to listen to Ian Frey last night.
Right.
Because there was something he said that stood out to me when I asked him, why did the team struggle so much to get back into their defensive shape? Why did they retreat so poorly? ¿Por qué se replegaron tan mal? Especially on that third goal, which is the most alarming one to me, which we'll talk about here in a second. This is what Ian Frey had to say with regards to that.
Honestly, I think we just have to, as players, we just have to hold ourselves accountable. Like when I went in, I hold myself accountable. I could have prevented some goals. Maybe could have ran back quicker or been in the right position. So I think it's just each player just got to be accountable. I don't think it has that part of it with the transition might not have to do with the coaches. It's just with the players. We need to fix that ourselves, including myself. So I think that's what it is.
It might not have to do with the coaches, he said. Player accountability, he says. Jose, I mean, when you look at that third goal, Inter Miami gets hit in transition. It was an immediate 5v3 in favor of Chicago Fire in terms of the numerical advantage from the run of play. Una superioridad numérica 5 contra 3. Telasco Segovia, who started, and Rodrigo de Paul were in the frame. Están en la foto. They could get back and help even it out, make it 5-5, 5-5.
Yeah.
And they trot back with a passiveness that is, to me, very concerning. Do you just chalk it up to tired legs? Is that what we're chalking it up to?
I think there's an element of tired legs for everybody on this team. I think there's part of the reason why we've seen Messi struggle as well lately. As much as he wants to play every single game, and I know Mascherano doesn't have a lot of say whether he plays or not. It's more about how Messi's feeling, and that determines if he plays or not. Which he's basically has said yes every single time to playing. I think for the rest of the team, even though there was a little bit of a rotation with Ian Frey and Chelo Wegan, there are not a lot of options, and they haven't been lately for this team. It's the same situation of suspensions, injuries. Baltasar Rodriguez, we've seen lately how much he can provide for this team, but the matter of fact is that he hasn't been there, and you cannot rely on him on playing the full 90 minutes at a high level. He can give you 25, 30, 40 at the latest. So that only puts more pressure on the starters. And the one thing that's concerning to me lately is Telasco Segovia and what's really happening there between Telasco Segovia and Mascherano. Is there something that we don't know about in terms of his fitness level? Is he hurt? Why is he not that big a factor like he was early on in the season? Because Telasco Segovia has been good for this team, 11 goals, over 45 games. I mean, so what is going on and why is he not that big a part of the picture late in the season? I know he didn't have a good first half last night, but still, it feels like, the confidence level is not there. Something's going on within this team. I relate it to the fact that, in my own opinion, I think there's two teams within Inter Miami. There's the five guys at the top, and then there's another group of players that need to adjust and fulfill whatever the five guys can accomplish. And that can be frustrating if you're not part of the big five. That can be frustrating if you're on the other side and you're getting blamed for everything. I mean, I think the perfect example is Noah Allen. Noah Allen got yelled last night by Jordi Alba when he gets a bad touch. And Noah Allen is like, what do you want me to do? I mean, I'm far away from you. I can't do anything for you in that particular play. And I don't know if TV caught this. But, that type of frustration where, the big guys, the big five, continues to complain to the rest of the team for particular situations, we're towards the end of the season. So things are starting to build up. And that's the one thing that could be concerning to me. But at the end of the day, I believe they have enough talent. And Messi is still Messi. And Suarez, even though people don't like him, don't rate him lately, he's getting better, in my opinion. I think Rodrigo de Paul should get better soon. And at the end of the day, they will continue to compete. They just have enough talent to compete. But those particular moments within games, those are the challenges that this team needs to find a way to figure out in the rest of the regular season and coming into the playoffs.
But that, to me, is the most concerning part, Jose, is that dynamics that we don't see necessarily, the parts that are not tangible in the locker room, in the day-to-day, that we don't see from our outside seats as media or as fans. I think that is a big part of that. I think that's going to trickle into the postseason. Look, I don't think there's any denying that Inter Miami has the potential to be the MLS Cup champion. Do they have that much talent where they, especially in the attack, where they can compete and they can contend, especially if Messi is at his top level? But right now, we're not seeing that consistently. It's one game, yes, they're on. One game, they're not on. One game, the defense plays well. One game, then the defense does not play well. And Mascherano last night talked about responsibility, and he took the responsibility. Something we've heard him say multiple times this year after disappointing results. And while I commend ser autocrítico, while I commend the self-awareness to raise his hand and say, I'm at fault, I'm the one most responsible, it also rings a little hollow to me, Jose. It also rings como un facilismo, just an easy way out. If every time they play poorly, he says, oh, it's my fault, my bad. I mean, then either you're just not a very good coach, which I don't think that's what he's trying to say, but I know he's trying to just take the brunt of the criticism to protect his players. But that can't always be the case. I mean, in that goal, that third goal that I just mentioned to you, Velasco Segovia, who has not been starting, you just mentioned that, could have ran back with more conviction, with more energy, with more effort. De Paul could have, who's el motorcito. We've been told he's the little engine because of his tireless motor. I mean, that's who he's been his career, throughout his career. And he also just trotted back. There was a play against New York City in the 4-0 victory for Inter Miami in the first half. And I put this on my Twitter handle at Franco Panizo. In the first half, when the game is 0-0, and DePaul just jogs back without much urgency, with almost a carefree attitude as to, well, somebody else will put it out. And that's, to me, the concerning things. Because we know from the run of play that this team with Messi can create. We know that can happen. But what is going on? I mean, I can't just point to tired legs at this point in the year, Jose. I know that they've had a lot of games. I know that the rotations have not been constant because the roster, as Mascherano has said, is corto, is short. But there were 5 changes, Jose, to this Tuesday game. You had 3 different changes at the back, which maybe that is a criticism of Mascherano. Maybe he tinkered too much at the back. But you had Chelo Weigand, you had Toto Aviles, and you had Gonzalo Luján starting in that back line with Jordi Alba. Right? Those are 3 changes. Then you had Telasco Segovia coming back in. And then you had Yannick Bright coming back in. So a lot of changes, healthy amount of changes.
Yeah, a lot of changes, but they were still tired. I mean, the reason why Telasco doesn't get back is because he can't make it. He can't get there. It's not because he wants to stop running. If you look at all the way, at the end of the play, look at Telasco Segovia. What is his reaction? He's exhausted. He couldn't go anymore.
So then
that's how fast he could go.
And we know how, then that's your reason why he's not starting.
That's not his job, necessarily. There's a concept there that was missing as to why is Telasco Segovia the one chasing back. That's another conversation. But the fact that he's chasing, he can't make it, tells you that he's tired. He was exhausted. And most likely because of that run, you lost him for the rest of the half. I mean, look, I think there's also an element of these games are not good enough for the Big Five. They're not big enough. Tuesday night against Chicago Fire, we can handle this. No worries. Let's chill. They should win this game. Obviously, then when you're in the game, you get frustrated. You go into the second half, you show a little bit of hype, a sense of urgency, and you score 2 goals. And then I think that's where, in particular last night, Mascherano makes a mistake. I don't blame Mascherano for everything that's happening with this team. And I know that's what people like to do. But I don't blame him for everything.
I agree with you.
But in the second half, at that point, he made the decision already to bring in Fafa. And then they scored the 3-3. They tied the game. And rather, of bringing Fafa in to maybe get the 4th goal, you have some momentum, go at them and attack them. He decides to hold on Fafa and get in and bring in Noah Allen. I did ask him about this in the press conference.
Yes.
Because for me, that was a moment that was maybe the moment in the game for Inter Miami coming back and winning the game. I thought he needed to go all in and attack. But he said, well, we were exposed, so we want to we'll organize things a little bit more. And that's why I brought Noah Allen. So that's, I think in my sense, that moment, I thought, well, that's the mistake. And that's why you ended up losing the game, because you had Chicago Fire on the ropes. You could have gone for the knockout, and then, you just decided not to. So, and in particular, that's the moment where the game was decided. But I think when they were motivated enough, when they had a challenge in front of them, then they were able to perform. I believe as the playoffs come, games will be more important than a regular season game on a Tuesday night, and I would expect a much better performance from them. And that's my thought process.
I don't disagree with you that Mascherano is not entirely to blame for this. I think that certain players need to step up. I do think Mascherano has a big part of it. Now, you touched on that moment with Fafa, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to mention it. Because to me, while I don't disagree that it could have cost Inter Miami yesterday, I also understand Mascherano's thought process, and I think it's just another clear example, Jose, whether we disagree with him philosophically, that he's a defensive-minded
Right.
coach.
Yes.
I think that it's crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
They were down 3-1. He started to make attacking minded changes to try to throw numbers forward, throw the kitchen sink to try to get back into the game. And Fafa was about to come into the game when it was 3-2. So clearly he views Fafa, who has seen very few minutes lately, as an attacking option off the bench when you're in big time need of a goal. Well,
Yeah.
they tied the game before Fafa could come into the match. And then that changed it. And he decided to then bring on Noah Allen instead, because now he wanted to give the team a little bit more balance. He wanted to help not be so attacking, right? In his viewpoint. That's clear. That's more or less what he said in his response to you. Paraphrasing here. But that's just a sign of who he is as a head coach, Jose. That's
Right.
just a sign. Now, could you say yes that now took away their momentum and that allowed Chicago to get back into it because they were, pinned in their own half? Yeah, you could say that, like you said. I mean, that's a fair criticism. My criticism, I think, from yesterday's game is not necessarily that point. I think Mascherano talked recently in a post-game press conference about the players needing to understand that the game is 90 minutes long. And I don't know if he necessarily understands that message as a head coach, because I think when the team's down and the team needs to push, I think he goes all into the attack minded approach too early. Like, I think he wants to throw the kitchen sink too early. This is my analysis, my opinion. I think he's too quick to get desesperado. Como se desespera, oh no, we're losing 3-1. It's the 60th minute. I need to throw everything out there. We've seen games, Jose, where in the last 10 minutes,
Yeah.
the teams keep themselves in the game. They don't give up another goal, and they find goals at the end, and they turn it around in the last 10 minutes with stoppage time. You could tie it, you could win it.
Well, this team did it a lot last year.
Right, but now we're talking with Mascherano, who's an inexperienced head coach. I don't know if he has that patience that he wants of his players in terms of the game is 90 minutes long. And I think that is a bigger talking point about his coaching and his in-game management that yesterday came. I think it plays into part what you said, but I think it's a bigger
I agree with you.
issue.
But I'm gonna add a wrinkle, and I want to see what you think about this and how this perspective changes that in particular. Okay, so Fafa, let's say he wanted to bring Fafa in late last night, in the game, because he wanted to score one more goal. Who is eligible to come out of the game as Mascherano tries to decide who comes out?
Well, you and I sat there, and normally we play the guessing game, right? We try to say who's coming out.
Rodrigo de Paul is not coming out. Luis Suarez is not coming out.
Messi's not coming out.
And Messi is not coming out.
Bussi's not coming out.
Bus is not coming out.
Jordi
is not coming out. So you obviously are not going to take out Tadeo Allende because you just brought him in. You're not going to take out Baltasar Rodriguez because you brought him in. So the odd man out is Yannick Bright. Is that the right substitution? It isn't. Because Yannick Bright would be the only player that has the legs to come back, which he has done. Remember the penalty against Seattle? It was Yannick Bright making the effort coming back. He ends up making the foul, coming on the penalty. Perfect. But he was the one making the effort running back. So Franco, as he tries to do something, he's coaching 6 players, and I'm including the goalkeeper. He's really coaching 6 players. And I think this is very important for people to understand. He's coaching 6 players.
Not 11.
At that point in the game, I can shrink that number a little bit more. Because at that point in the game, usually very late in the game, you already brought players in. So let's pretend he already brought 2 players in. So out of the 6, that's 4. We know the goalkeeper doesn't really matter because you're trying to score goals. So we're back to 3 players. That's what he's coaching. That's what he's coaching in this team late in games.
So
And that's just
he's
the
hamstrung.
reality of it.
So he's hamstrung in your opinion, in terms of what he can do out there. Which I don't disagree with that. I
He
don't
can't
disagree
do
with
a lot. He cannot do a lot with this team. Because you know what will happen if Suarez or DePaul comes out of the game. I mean, I would never take out Messi out of the game. Because, I mean, he's the one that can change any game at any given point. But there are moments, especially last night, Rodrigo DePaul was not playing well. And he hasn't proven to be a difference maker. So the right move last night was to take out Rodrigo DePaul and bring Fafa Picault in. But he can't do that. Just can't do it. And that's the reality of this team. People need to understand. And if I'm completely honest, I hope Mascherano understands that reality as well as he moves forward in his career. It's just the reality of our Inter Miami this year.
Let's listen to Mascherano, what he said last night when he took on the responsibility for the lopsided defeat.
Fue un partido donde claramente el responsable del planteamiento y de todo lo que nos pasó soy yo. Eso lo tengo claro. Pensamos un partido y se terminó dando otro totalmente diferente. En el entretiempo decidimos cambiar. No funcionó en buena parte del segundo tiempo, pero bueno, claramente corríamos riesgo de que nos agarren de contra porque estábamos tomando demasiados riesgos y bueno, así pasó. Es una lástima, como le dije a los jugadores en el entretiempo, no por una cuestión de nombre, sino por una cuestión de planteamiento. Imaginé un partido donde poder tener la posesión, el control del partido y hoy no pude ayudarlos desde ese lugar, así que esta derrota es exclusivamente responsabilidad mía.
Posted a paraphrase there, and that was the response to your question last night in the press conference. He touches on he's solely a person responsible for the defeat, that he apologized to the team at halftime for not being able to help them, that the idea was won, but what happened on the field ended up not playing out how they expected. But again, being the face, taking the blows for his players, which again is commendable to a certain point, but not when it's repetitive, not when it's reiterativo. And Jose, you touched on Telasco Segovia and Baltasar Rodriguez, and I want to just, because we're talking football here, I want to talk a little more specifically about that, because that's something we had a healthy conversation about in our famed WhatsApp group that we have with Andrea and our other colleague Fernando Petrocelli, who is completely confused as to why Telasco Segovia, who's one of the top goal scorers on the team this year across all competitions, is not starting. And I think plenty of people who are not Venezuelan, like Petrico is, are also wondering why that is. The only explanation I have for it from a soccer standpoint, un punto futbolístico, is Baltasar Rodriguez gives them a different dimension that Telasco does not give them. Telasco is a player that is very good with the ball to feet, can combine well. We've seen him, with the wall passes with Messi, the 1-2s, 1-2, Paredes, all that. But he doesn't make Inter Miami any faster. And it's clear with Tadeo Allende, when everybody's healthy and everyone's available, Tadeo Allende has started on the right side of the midfield. And that is the speed that is supposed to help give Inter Miami a different dimension. And I think at one point early on in the year, Fafa talked about how Mascherano wanted his wingers to get in behind. And Fafa at one point early on in this year was starting on the left in preseason. And I think they want a little more speed, not necessarily for when they're in possession, but for when they win the ball and then they need to hit quickly in transition, who can test that backline. And the goal that Baltasar Rodriguez scores against New York City FC, the first one, the winner, proves to be the winner. I think that is the play that shows you that he brings a different element. Where Inter Miami wins the ball, Messi feeds a perfectly weighted through ball to Baltasar Rodriguez, and Baltasar Rodriguez, with his one-on-one opportunity, puts the ball in the back of the net. Right? That's not something Telasco Segovia can give you. You don't see Telasco Segovia racing in behind the back line and getting a one-on-one chance. He scores great goals. He has tremendous quality, but normally his goals come from outside the box, a hell of a strike. He can puede patear muy bien de distancia, but he's not the type of player that can help you stretch a defense. And I think that's my opinion as to why. No one's really asked Mascherano directly, and not that Mascherano, to be fair, would give us a straight answer as to, well, this, and this. But I think that's more along the lines of what it is. And I think, to round out the thought, I think we probably would have seen Baltasar Rodriguez starting more often this year ahead of Telasco Segovia, despite Telasco Segovia's good performances, if Baltasar Rodriguez had been healthy. But all year, he started to play, then been injured. When they signed him, they were like, Mascherano said he brings different characteristics, características diferentes. And I think that is esa característica diferente. I think that's the different characteristic that he likes from his wingers.
No, I agree with you. But the fact is that, Telasco has the numbers. Baltasar, it's more an expectation that we have from him. The one thing that's lacking for Telasco Segovia is that he has been starting and he has been scoring. But if you look at the minutes played, that's where, he barely, ever played the full 90 minutes. But why is that? How can Inter Miami, the coaching staff, help him, to take the next step and play the full 90 minutes at a higher level? Again, we're in October. This is not March, where, we're coming off preseason, we're just getting to know each other. No, Telasco has proven that he can be an asset for this team. But how can we get, 1,400 minutes to 2,000 minutes, like Busi has? They were tied for games played. But if you look at the minutes played, there's a huge gap between Busi and Telasco. How can we get him from 11 goals to 15 to 16? There's potential there. It's a completely different scenario from like Fafa. And we don't see Fafa minutes from Fafa. So we know there's something there extra. But Telasco has proven that he can perform for this team. I think, in my opinion, he's an asset, and they need to find a way to figure things out. I don't know if they will at this point, but there's difference, and Telasco, yes, can provide something else, but Telasco has already done that for this team.
Right, but he might not encajar. He might not fit what he wants, right?
Well, Franco, he has 11 goals in 45 games.
Jose, I'm not arguing that it is.
You know who doesn't encajar? Fafa. Fafa.
But Jose, I am not debating that it is. I'm not making the argument that Telasco doesn't have merit and hasn't shown that he can be productive there. I'm just saying, from my seat, to me, it appears Mascherano has a certain profile he prefers. Hay gustos entre los entrenadores. There's just likes and dislikes and profiles that you want for your team. And I think Baltasar fits it. Now, you could argue that that's a good decision, a bad decision. We could talk about that for days. I think that's one of the reasons why that position as of late has been more Baltasar Rodriguez's than Telasco Segovia's. But switching gears to look into the future, we both don't expect Inter Miami to win the Supporter Shield, right? I think that's pretty much, if it hasn't flatlined officially yet, it's all but about to flatline. If that beep is still going, it's about to beep, it's about to go.
Yeah, especially because Philly is playing teams, out of the playoffs already. I think New York Red Bulls is next, and DC might be the last one, if I'm not mistaken. Look, it's still MLS, but
anything can happen.
It's a long shot.
Not out of it mathematically, but realistically, it would be a Hail Mary, to use an American football terms. It would be un milagro. Mm-hmm. For Inter Miami, the goal at this point is to finish as high up the standings as they can. We'll look at the table
I think
Again, one more
second
time.
place wouldn't be as bad, and that's perfect timing with the table, the standings, because Lucas in ninth place. It's Columbus right there. So yeah, they have been struggling this year, but I still believe they're a good team. So look, if there's a Philly Columbus in the first round of the playoffs, that's going to be a good series. That's going to be a good series. So,
Jose, if you look at the table, though, which of those teams, and I know this is going to be a tough exercise, but which of those teams, if you take a jog down memory lane this year, have not beaten Inter Miami? Or if you
yeah,
want to
but
do it easier, which ones have beaten Inter Miami? Chicago,
yes,
Charlotte.
yeah, Orlando. Did they? Was it this year? Yes, they did this year. Yes.
Yes, they beat them twice
Um,
this year.
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
Inter Miami has shown struggles against several of these teams. Now they've beaten these teams as well, but again, this Inter Miami is not the Inter Miami that you would expect, because on paper you would expect an Inter Miami
that
that
does Inter
would
Miami. I mean,
right. What you would expect an Inter Miami that is consistently good with some dips, because it's normal to have dips, but that is consistently here in terms of performance levels. But this team is all over the place. And Mascherano, I want to hear one more soundbite from him here, where he talks about how they've competed well into late stages in different moments this year, but that obviously that hasn't been enough, because he was asked about what is this team capable of here the rest of the way. And this will help us transition to Messi and his MVP form as we round out the final topics of this week's show. But let's listen to Mascherano here.
Sí, nosotros al final vamos a ir partido a partido tratando de cerrar de la mejor manera estos 3 partidos y terminar en lo más alto de la tabla. Y después vamos a tratar de competir para ganar el campeonato. Esa es la realidad. Creo que es verdad, como decís vos, hemos sido irregulares a lo largo de la temporada, pero creo que también hemos tenido muchos buenos pasajes durante la temporada, y el equipo, si hay algo que no se lo puede reprochar, es que ha competido. Claramente, lo he dicho una y mil veces, que bueno, que no nos ha alcanzado hasta el momento. Trataremos de ajustar todo lo que tengamos que ajustar. Vuelvo a repetir, yo el primero, sobre todo, porque soy el responsable, y mirar hacia adelante. Creo que no somos más que nadie, pero tampoco somos menos que nadie. Esa es una realidad, y creo que tenemos argumentos y herramientas de sobra como para poder competir contra cualquier rival de la MLS.
To paraphrase, he says a lot of interesting little anecdotes, little nuggets that he drops there. He says, we're not less than any other team, but we're not necessarily better than any other team. We can compete with any team in MLS. There are things to fine tune. But Jose, again, when we go look at the collective here, and it's something again that I tweeted yesterday, this team has a lot of heart, has a lot of fight, right? If you say is there fight in the dog? Yes, there's fight in the dog that is Inter Miami. When their backs are against the wall, when the chips are down, tienen carácter, tienen rebeldía. They have the ability to respond. We've seen it in different moments. We saw it, as far back you go to the series against LAFC in the Champions Cup, where they're down, they're facing adversity, and then through sheer heart, through sheer competitiveness and will and desire, they were able to come through in that series. And look, this is a redeeming characteristic of Javier Mascherano, when he was a player, and who he is as a person, probably. A lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of fight. Pero poco fútbol. Not a lot of quality soccer. And this team, again, with Messi's not on his best level, to me looks like a team that is, or that struggles to appear cohesive and capable with and without the ball. Because if Messi's not creating chances, who is? Suarez maybe, that's about it. Baltasar Rodriguez has shown chispas, little moments lately that he can help create chances, but you don't have a lot of options there. And then in terms of finishing, I mean, if Suarez isn't the clinical Suarez we saw last night, which he has not been for much of this year, then you're relying on who to score goals. Tadeo Allende, which has been very inconsistent in terms of his finishing this year. Velasco Segovia, who scores very good goals, but usually from outside the box, not necessarily a finisher. So this team cannot get Messi to be at his absolute best in the playoffs. I don't think they have any chance at winning MLS Cup. And I've said that for weeks now. This is not something new. I don't know if that's your opinion or what you think about their outlook.
Yeah, no, that's my opinion. I completely agree with you. I think, this is a team that can compete, but there's no major indication that will tell you that they are better than LAFC or Vancouver or Philly or Cincy, especially if they go on the road against Philly or Cincy. I think they would struggle. There's not enough for me. That the roster is not shaped the way it should, and blame whatever you want to blame. I think there were moves made with this year with this team that were not beneficial for the team. I think if we go back to the Robert Taylor, I can agree with the Julian Gressel thing because, I didn't think Julian Gressel would make a big difference in this team in particular. But I think Robert Taylor was a player that could continue to help this team, especially put some pressure on Tadeo Allende. I think there were moves made this year that were not beneficial. I think they really needed to find a way to figure out the Baltasar Rodriguez situation. They waited for too long. Now he's coming back, but I think it's too late. Even for him, it might be a little bit unfair, to judge him on the last 2-3 months of the season. So I think this is not a good roster. This is not a good roster. And
so the only way this roster wins is with Messi, right? That's
if Messi, yeah.
Right. How have you seen Messi this year? How have we seen him? Because we said we both think we're voting for him for MVP this year, right?
Yeah.
And against New York City, Lo Vimos 2 goals and an assist. Against Toronto, he had some chances, couldn't best Sean Johnson, and then last night he has an off game by his standards. I mean, overall over the course of the year, he's been the best player in the league, let alone the team.
But the players are different, though.
But what Messi do you see going into the playoffs? A frustrated Messi?
Yes.
A Messi playing at his best level?
I think I see him frustrated, but I see him tired as well. I go back to that interview after the Venezuela game in Buenos Aires, where he clearly, and maybe for the first time in a while, as he's answering the one of the final questions about the World Cup next year, he tells the reporters, there are days that I feel okay, and there are some other days that I'm not that great. And Messi's so good, has been so good historically that just the fact to think that he's not feeling well, it's so unusual. You always think he's ready. You always think he'll perform at the highest level, and he's allowed to have bad games. But it feels like he's starting to realize I'm getting closer and closer to the end, and maybe that's creeping into his mind, and it's added frustration. It's also the fact that he hasn't been able to build that confidence within the rest of his teammates because it's so evident that he always looks for De Paul, Busi, Alba, or Suarez to pass the ball. Even I think there was a particular moment last night where Ian Frey makes a beautiful run on the right side. He's basically in front of goal. Should be a super easy pass, I should say. I'm sorry for Messi. And he decides to hold on to the ball and wait for somebody else. Ian Frey is right in front of goal, but he doesn't trust that Ian Frey would get the ball and finish. That's also added pressure because you're not going to be able to find your preferred teammates every single time. So
And that speaks to the chemistry that we talked about, or the lack of chemistry that
Right.
exists in this team. Look, last night I saw two separate teams: a team that was attacking, a team that was defending. I didn't see a cohesive group, and that's to me spells trouble going into the playoffs. Look, they've got 3 games. It starts this weekend against the New England Revolution, and then they.
But that's not going to change, Franco. That's not.
No,
of
course.
The chemistry. I mean, it is what it is. At this point of the season, again, it's October.
Absolutely.
At this point, there's not going to be a conversation between the rest of the guys in the Big Five. And there's no way, no matter what they say, to convince them that, listen, guys, now we need you because, the playoffs are approaching, so we're not going to be able to win it on our own. We kind of need 6 other guys. Who's available? Who wants to win? It's not going to happen. If you didn't make that effort before, what makes you think you can do it in 3 weeks? I mean, it's hard to believe that can happen. It's not going to change.
It's hard to bet against Messi. I think if you bet against him throughout the entire of his career, you'd be very, very in the hole in terms of money, because he tends to deliver even in tough moments. He has a big uphill challenge in the playoffs. Big uphill challenge, because again, if he's not at his best, tough to see this team winning, especially with how vulnerable they are at the back. You're going to give up chances. You're going to give up goals. You need to put more goals in at the other end, and Messi's clearly a huge part of that. If he's not fino, then Inter Miami is going to have a tough time. Francisco Garcia says, está un poco más lento, un poco menos fino. Así es la vida. Jerry Barrios says, clearly huge chemistry issues among certain players, and clearly there are reservations hidden in players' mind towards key decisions made on players throughout the year, either acquired or let go. Nick Smith says, it's also unfortunate that Silvetti had to step out. He'd probably be starting over Allende going forward. You could see Messi rates him just from his short time here. You can see that he rates a Newell's Old Boys product. I mean,
From where?
Rosario.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Nick Smith, but if that is the observation, and what a coincidence that he has that feeling for a player who's from his barrio, his neighborhood, his hood, his city.
And look, that's not bad. I mean, I think Silvetti is a very good player. But again, if you want to build a competitive roster in MLS, you need to find some of the pieces within the league. I mean, it's hard to bring a team from the Argentine First Division to compete to MLS. They're completely different styles. Yet they do have a higher standard, a higher level, but it's a completely different style when you play against Chicago Fire. So, I mean, look, it's hard to do it. It's very hard. It's not that easy. So sometimes you just have to, let some other people make decisions. They know the league. They've been here longer, and maybe they can find some assets that can actually help you win championships, which is something that Inter Miami hasn't been able to do.
We will do a full autopsy once the year ends entirely, whether that's in the first round of the playoffs, whether it's at MLS Cup with Inter Miami having a parade here in South Florida. We'll see. It's a couple more talking points here before we wrap up. I will answer Dan's question because I know he's been spamming the comment section with it. I just couldn't fit it in until now. Dan asked, should I be worried about it raining on Saturday at Chase Stadium for Inter Miami versus New England? I'm going to the game. Franco, let me know your score prediction also. So, Dan, I am not a meteorologist, but I am looking at my new fancy iPhones.
Perfect setup right there.
Yes. I'm looking at the weather app, and it is supposed to rain all weekend, apparently. Now,
it will rain?
Apparently. I mean, where I am, let's see. I mean, I'm not too far from the stadium.
I don't want to jinx it, but Messi, since La Presentación, which that's been the only rain delay for Messi in South Florida.
Well, you just jinxed it then, Jose. But it's apparently going to be raining all weekend. You know how South Florida is. It could rain for a few minutes and then go away. It could be scattered storms. So even if it rains, if it's your first time going to a game, take a poncho, take an umbrella. The game should be played unless there's thunder and lightning in the area, or lightning in the area.
Don't let the rain take you out of the game. look,
the comment section is having fun with it. Nick Smith says, haha, Dan over here wildin'. You allergic to water? He might be a witch, man. He could be a witch. You never brujo. You don't know. He could melt if the water hits him. But no, Dan's been asking a lot. So, I mean, with all seriousness, Dan, if it does rain, you should be okay. The game should still be played. Only if there's lightning in the area will the game be postponed. Normally they try to finish it through, even if they have to wait hours on end, because the schedule is so tight and congested. There's nowhere else to play the game unless it's the next day. You should be fine.
Inter Miami would not agree to moving this game to some other time. I mean, they would not agree. So they'll play on Saturday, even if it's at 1 a.m., which at that point would be Sunday. But so just go to the game. Look, I mean, I haven't been there, but I've seen videos of La Familia. They do have a good time during rain delays whenever it rains, under the bleachers. So, I mean, you'll find someplace nice to be safe, not getting wet, and enjoying the
Dan plays FIFA, says, no, bro, it's just that I don't want to get sick. Man, I'm sick right now, man. I don't even fear the rain, but I hear your concern. He says, I'm sorry for spamming. Dan, we're just teasing you, man. We tease a lot here on this show. We tease each other. We tease the comment section. All good. No worries. I did want to answer that. I did feel like I owed you a response. Hosted, since the last show, it became official. Sergio Busquets announced his retirement at season's end. It has been long suspected by us here on the ground in South Florida that cover this team day to day, just by the lack of updates with regards to a new contract, the comments he's made when we've asked him questions about his future. The most recent press conference was probably the most telling, although when I did ask him at the Club World Cup about his future, it also seemed like his time was coming to an end, because he was saying, I haven't had any conversations, and all signs pointed to this year being the end. He made that announcement in a heartfelt video message on his Instagram. I think it was last Thursday, so 6 days ago. He was asked about it. We'll quickly listen to a snippet about his decision to retire. This was after the 1-1 draw against Toronto. I know you had a video that you put out touching on his career. We'll leave the overall praise for the end of what Busquets has accomplished in his career, because otherwise we're going to spend another 20 minutes here. But let's listen to Busi, and we can give some quick thoughts on the decision.
No, a ver, está claro que sabía que era mi último año de contrato. Cuando llevas tantos años, tantos partidos, tantos viajes, al final no solo físicamente, sino también mentalmente lo que tú quieres. Tanto yo como mi familia hemos creído que esto era lo mejor y que hasta aquí iba a llegar mi historia en el fútbol y nada, como te he dicho antes, ley del fútbol, ley del deporte y de la vida y poco más.
So he says, that was the most telling comment in that quick interview he did post-game, where he says, it's the law of life, the law of professional sports, the law of soccer, the law of football. Decision has to come. He talks about los viajes. He talks about not just physically, but mentally. And you know what, man? Again, we can give him the praise in due time, but I think mentally he's probably been checked out for part of the year, right? Because if you already know you're going to retire, unless you are super I don't even know what the word is, super focused, it's hard to go into the training sessions with the same type of intensity and desire that you do when you're not at the end of your career, right? When you know it's near and you're like, all right, I'm ready to get this over with, you're going to probably not put in the same type of effort. And I think we've seen that in different moments this year where his performance levels haven't been great. So Jose, quick thoughts on his decision to
I don't know if I agree with that a lot. I think Boosie has been a pro. I think the fact that he has been available for most of the year really tells you about it. I think that might happen at this point, at the end of the season, where he's going to start thinking, wow, this could be my last game. This is my last training session. This is my last trip. This is my last this and that. That can really take you off the game for a little while. But I trust that Busi, with plenty of experience. And, let's be honest, I think he has done the most important things that he needed to do in his career, they're already said and done. So, MLS is not going to change a lot.
He's a consummate professional, but I'm just speaking from a human level, a personal level. And obviously, I don't think anyone's going to come out and say this. And again, this is not inside information, just my supposition. Jose, if you put in your 2-week notice in a job, are you through the last day and the last hour and the last minute working as hard as you did when you first got the job or when you were, 3 years into the job? No, you start to take your foot off the pedal. And I think, just my opinion, I could be wrong, from my seat, it explains why some games his performance level, su rendimiento ha sido tan bajo, because he's not going to push himself knowing that the end is near. He's like, all right, the end is near. I mean, whatever, they score. I think he'll turn it up a notch now, and we're starting to see him pick up his performance now that the end is here. Now there's more meaningful games. It's not the dog days of summer in MLS. I think now we're going to see him perform better because now it's okay. Now we're really playing for something here because it's the end. We're competing for a title. I would not be surprised if the uptick that we've seen in his performance levels of late continues through the playoffs, because now there's meaning to the end. During the middle of the year, otro partido, otro viaje, I have to be away from my family. I gotta go. Like, I don't want to go to Seattle. No, but that was the final, so I won't say that. I don't want to go to San Jose and have a 6-hour flight and be away. Like, I'm just talking from a human level. And people are asking about Jordi Alba very quickly. Francisco Garcia Alba, V Vega says Alba gone too. There have been rumors about Jordi Alba. There's been whispers behind the scenes. That's all I can tell you. I've not been able to confirm, not been able to deny. Mascherano was asked in person about that recently, and he did not offer any real clarity. But he also did not say Jordi Alba will be here next year, despite the fact that Jordi Alba signed a contract extension. So, again, I can only tell you that there are whispers behind the scenes about Jordi Alba potentially leaving this year. Now, obviously, the news was this year that he signed a contract extension through 2027, I believe.
Yes.
That's all I've got for you guys for now. And unfortunately, I don't have more. If I do, I would tell you. You guys know. You guys know how it is here. Franco or not Franco. Jose, last thing before we wrap up. Any concerns with the turnout yesterday? Because we got some questions about that as well. Wasn't a healthy turnout on a Tuesday. Now, we know the Dolphins played on Monday night. It's middle of the week. Middle of the week games don't draw as well. This was a rescheduled match. Obviously, the novelty of Messi has faded from when he first got here.
Yeah.
But this is still a team that has 5 big-time players, man. They should have drawn better than they did yesterday, right?
And, especially because it was a big game. It was a very important game for this team. I think that tells me two things. There's not a lot of an understanding as to, at what point in the season Inter Miami is. Maybe not a lot of people in South Florida know about the Supporter Shield and, how impactful that game was really at the end of the day. That's one thing, because, that's what usually drives people to the stadium. And then, what you mentioned, Messi, still Messi for the rest of the world, but not for South Florida. Messi in South Florida, it's just another professional athlete. I mean, I'm sorry to say it that way, but I think that's the reality. I mean, look, I just mentioned at the start of the pod, I was there for the Marlins, for the Heat, for the Dolphins this week, and every media outlet in South Florida was there.
Jack of all trades, Jose, a new nickname for you.
Nobody was there for the Messi game, and there was nothing going on that night. So
I think it speaks to a bigger thing about, where football is in the country, even in a market with such a big Latin population like South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
I should clarify. Sorry, not nobody was there. Telemundo was there last night.
We were there, Jose. Miami Total Football Radio was there.
Of course, but I'm talking about the TV
stations,
stations, which usually cover and sustain sports, big leagues in local markets.
I got your.
That's what I meant.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear. And that's something, again, we can talk about in more detail and in more in depth at some point in the off season when there's less to talk about with regards to Inter Miami, though they normally still give us so much to talk about, even when we think we're going to have downtime. It's like Christmas Eve and there's breaking news. And happening. But it was a little concerning yesterday that the turnout was as poor as it was. Yes, I understand it's a midweek game. Those generally draw not as well as weekend games, but you still have Messi and you still have 4 other very big name players, and that should sell itself. But I think, it talks about where the team is, maybe about a saturation too, oversaturation with how many matches they've played. And obviously, again, just where the sport is in general. But anyway,
more than anything, this should be concerning for MLS.
Oh, well, I mean, again, we could dissect this and go for a long time.
Yeah.
And I will to irk you before we wrap up here, Island Jose.
All right.
Stan C. I'm gonna highlight a comment from the comment section that only agrees with me and not you. There's a Stan C saying, unless you're MJ level of competitive, then yes, you check out. And that was in reference to Boosie, in my opinion, mentally probably not being 100% committed to the cause. But anyway, we will leave it there. We went a little bit over the hour, 10 minutes, not by much, but we did go over. So tarjeta amarilla, yellow card for yours truly. Jose, they play the New England Revolution. Leonardo
Campanita.
We'll see how Inter Miami does.
We need to have sound effects in this show. For next year, we need to have sound effects.
I'll work
every
on
time we mention campana. You need to have a campana.
Jose, very quickly, does Inter Miami bounce back with a victory?
Yes, but campana scores. But Inter Miami wins the game.
I think Inter Miami will win again. Hopefully, for their sake, they address how vulnerable they've looked defensively. They're not going to be 100%, but they definitely need to fine tune and not look as bad as they did against Chicago Fire. We'll be back next week at some point. I'm going to say probably before the season finale. I don't think we'll be able to jam pack a pod in between the weekend and then the midweek match. And we could try, especially if something big happens, but probably not. Probably not.
Something big could happen.
Host is busy guy. You guys heard it there. You heard it. He said it himself. He's got football, American football, basketball starting up again, baseball. So he did literally 4 of the 5 major.
You're
sports.
right.
And he does not. And he doesn't count hockey, by the way. He doesn't count hockey.
Doesn't count.
That's another
not a real sport.
That's another story for
just
another
like cricket.
time.
It's not a real sport. Also,
it's a story for another time. But Jose is not a big fan of hockey, so you will have never seen Jose covering the back-to-back champion Florida Panthers.
Well, never say never.
I give an inside joke. All right, we will leave it there. We'll be back next week for sure. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We ran a little bit late and started a little bit late, but that's on us. So thank you guys for always tuning in, being a rambunctious and fun bunch in the comment section. It
was fun.
You definitely help us enjoy the job even more. Like, we enjoy it, but you guys make it that much more enjoyable, and always enjoy the back and forth dialogue, whether you agree or disagree. But all right, we'll leave it there. Enough mushy-gushy stuff. I need to get some rest because I'm still a little under the weather. I got to get better so I don't get wet in the rain like Dan plays FIFA and then get even more sick. So for Jose Armando, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening to or watching Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We'll talk to you guys again in a few days.